I've been feeling all the feelings these last few weeks, and maybe you have as well. I know there's a temptation to just keep busy or to numb out because we're afraid that if we slow down or if we stop, those feelings will overwhelm us or paralyze us or leave us in a heap on the kitchen floor or in the bathroom floor because that's where we need to get away from our kids. And I'm all for you caring for yourself in ways that are helpful and healthy. But if Jesus can go from jubilant celebration to weeping and grief to anger in the course of 9 verses, then I think we're okay to bring all of who we are into the presence of that same King. Now, earlier I mentioned this book, Wholeheartedness, and in that book, Chuck DeGroat writes that increasingly psychologists are discovering that one of the keys to wholeheartedness, to a healthy integrated life, is self-compassion. All right, self-compassion, which allows us to be imperfect. It's acknowledging that we're imperfect. It allows us to be okay with not being okay. Now, if you're skeptical of self-compassion or if you're pointing out, well, the Bible never talks about self-compassion, well, let me frame it this way. Self-compassion is to give ourselves the same grace that God gives us. All right? Self-compassion is to give ourselves, to show ourselves the same grace that God shows us. God simultaneously has higher hopes for us and for our lives than anything we could ever have, and God has more grace for us than we could ever have. And living in the integration of that is what brings joy and fullness of life in the midst of all of the hard things. Jesus is King. Jesus is a compassionate, righteous, and just King. That's who's on the throne. That's who's by your side. And that's who, by the power and presence of the Holy Spirit, is within you. And so how do we respond to this King Jesus who comes to us in the midst of the world we're in right now? Well, one question for us to ponder this Holy Week is, as my friend asked me last week, well, what does spiritual formation look like in this time? Who are you becoming in this season? Or to put it another way, what are the things that you are doing? Well, what are they doing to you? How are they forming you? Are they making you more compassionate, more righteous, more just? What image of God are you reflecting out to a world in need? And maybe this too. In your actions and in your words, are you showing, are you demonstrating, are you illustrating that Jesus is King? Or someone or something else?